Okay. All right. Well, welcome. My name is Lisa Bronner, and I welcome everybody who has joined us on this Facebook Live today. I'm so glad that you are here, and I am thrilled to be here with my two guests, Heather Reisman and Laurie David. Now, you may know these names. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them in case you've got them bouncing around in your head and you're thinking, I know them. Laurie and Heather together have produced between them some of the most conversation-shifting documentaries of our day. You might have seen An Inconvenient Truth or The Social Dilemma, Fed Up, and my personal favorite, which is The Biggest Little Farm, almost made me convert my entire backyard into a working farm. Still thinking about it. And I'm so glad they're joining us today to discuss their new book, Imagine It, A Handbook for a Happier Planet. Now, Laurie's joining us from Martha's Vineyard, where she's taking a break from her tireless and undaunted environmental advocacy. And so thank you, Laurie, for joining us. Glad to have you. And Heather's joining us from Canada. And Heather, I don't know how you have fit so much into your days. I think your days must be longer than mine. Heather is the CEO of Indigo Books, Canada's leading bookseller, and has been recognized around the world as one of the top women of business, and has even been inducted into the Canadian Hall of Fame for Business. So welcome, Heather. I'm so glad you're here today.
It's a pleasure. So much fun to be here.
Oh, good. That is great. And I love hearing from other people that are moving in the same direction that we are at Dr. Bronner's, because, you know, we can only do so much. And Dr. Bronner's is a manufacturing company who does a lot of advocacy. But, you know, we just have our sphere of influence. So it's wonderful to be overlapping with the work and the advocacy that you, Heather and Laurie, have been doing. But first, I want to hear, how did you two start working together, and how did this book come about?
Heather, do you want to start? Do you want me to start? You start, Heather.
Well, the story of how we came together is a whole long story, and I'm not sure we have time for it today, but we could circle back. Suffice it to say that we discovered, not as a first date fall in love, but very shortly after, that we are truly soulmates and a kind of yin and yang. So lots has come as about that, but we are at our hearts storytellers, and storytellers who care about trying to do our part to make the world a little bit better place. So that's kind of at the heart of us. But if I just say about this book, so Laurie is truly one of the great environmental activists in the United States. It was she who conceived Inconvenient Truth. That was her documentary journey long before I joined her. But the big benefit of our relationship is that her passion for the environment naturally wore off on me, advanced my point of view. And I had already been interested. I had started a little tiny seedling company about, 12 years ago that was all green product. We were a bit early for the market, but just being next to Laurie all the time, I just kept growing and learning. And there is no better advocate, because she is relentless. And so a couple of years ago, we were together enjoying a little vacation time, and we went for a walk. And of course, it was only moments before Laurie was lamenting the fact, and this was pre-COVID, so just take yourself back to then, lamenting the fact that we just weren't moving fast enough as a planet. We're just not moving fast enough. People are not moving fast enough. It's driving her crazy everywhere she looks. And I said, Laura, I think more people want to do things, but it's so overwhelming. Where do people start? How do they get there? And being later to the journey than Laurie, it was and still is deeply in me about what are these little habit changes you can make? And can we do something to help people? And out of that walk and Laurie's intense commitment to trying to unlock more energy and my interest in sharing information, we decided to write this book. And I just want to say before we kick off and I turn it over to her that as you noted, I am CEO of Indigo, which is Canada's largest bookseller. And A book that I just recently made a Heather's Pick is called Atomic Habits. It's one of the best books I have ever read in terms of changing habits. And that book and Imagine It go together because the point the writer makes is little changes in the right direction done day after day after day after day make a massive difference after a year. And so this book,
that's helpful.
This book, of course, recognizes that governments have to have certain legislation, companies have to adopt the Bronner's idea, but it all starts with us as voters and consumers. As we embrace a new paradigm, we are more likely to buy products that reflect that paradigm and to vote for people. So really, it does start with us. And this book is all about that. It is about a handbook, an approachable, everyday, step-by-step handbook that captures the wealth of information that Laurie has and the bits I have added on my journey into a story. So that's how it came about.
That's such a monumental walk. My goodness, one walk can really change your life. I love it.
Lisa, you could see what I was talking about with you the other day, that Heather is she's such an inspiration. I want to add two little things though. You made the case, Heather, beautifully. There's this thing, and we write about it in the book, called behavioral contagion, which is that people tend to have a tendency to copy the behavior of other people when they see it. And it's social contagion or behavioral contagion. And I think that's in a way what the book you're talking about is about. And it's also one of the philosophies, I think, underpinning Imagine It, that if you start doing something, that you're gonna teach that to the people around you, your social circle, it's gonna expand. And that's how we get real social change. And that is the philosophy, I think, of Imagine It. In terms of writing the book, I just want to add one little thing, that Heather has a big day job. And so we had to work on this book at night during the pandemic. So every night she would work all day, and she would have more energy in our night sessions. It was crazy. I mean, I was like, by 9:30, I'm like, it's almost midnight here. I have to go to sleep. And she could go on for a few more hours, way past.
Oh, I want some. Sign me up for that. My goodness.
Exactly. But also that we were such a great combination. And why I think this book is so readable is because I tend to I'm like a surface dweller, and she's a deep diver. And that is a difference in our personality. And when you put that together, you get Imagine It, which is just she needed to understand every concept herself. She needed to do the research herself. So it's written in a way that everyone can understand it and take something away from it. I think it made the book so much stronger and more readable.
I think that's so great, from having two different voices in it, because you know, voices reach different people and they speak a slightly different language, and so it makes it stronger and have a more broader connection with people. And I love what you were saying about the daily habits, because we need both the big macro policy changes, and then we need the everyday in our homes and in our lives changes. That's where the real change happens. And one of the things that Laurie has emphasized is that there's really not a difference between a happier planet and healthier you. Did you consider putting both of those phrases in the title?
Yes, we did. I mean, right, Heather? We talked about.
Yeah, we had both to begin with.
When I actually signed the book, I add that into the circle, and a healthier you, because they're completely interchangeable. And if you care about your health, the health of your family, you have to care about the environment, the air, the water, the products that you're using. So they are very interchangeable. And if there had been more room in that circle, we would have added it.
I love it.
And I would say they're connected. As goes our health, as goes the health of the planet, so goes our health. As goes our health, so goes the health of the planet. And it's just circular, because if we are behaving in a way that's healthy for us, it means we are organic. And what we're putting back out into the planet is also organic material. And so we do try and highlight that point, whether it's use of chemicals or in so many of the chapters, which of course is why Dr. Bronner's is so inspiring as a company, and why we have a story on Dr. Bronner's, because you've been at it for so long, and it's so authentic, and it came from such, I mean, I know you today's about the book, but I'd like to interview you and talk about the history of Dr. Bronner's. You glow. So I have to imagine this is 3 generations of living in harmony with the planet, because you literally glow, like your skin glows, and you look so amazing. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just so, it's so inspiring. Right back at you, seriously.
And also they were doing it way before it was cool to do or the thing to do. I mean,
yeah.
And I've been a customer of this brand for my whole life, really. And
I love hearing that.
I use it for everything. I buy the huge bottle so that I can refill the smaller ones that I have. And I love that one product can do 100 different things. And
absolutely.
It's fantastic. And the labels are cool too.
Yeah. Well, you know, as I told the story, the label came first. The label came first. The soap was made to sell the label. And this actually takes us back to Heather's beautiful point. And I'm going to have to listen to our live again, because I want to get your quote about as goes our health, goes the planet. Because somebody might say, you know, I am super busy. I have my professional life. I have my personal life, kids, dogs. I don't have time to think about the planet. But honestly, as we're making decisions for our own optimal health, we really are making decisions for the health of the planet. So you don't have to think, you know, well, I can't get to that one.
It's another job.
Yeah. If you're buying, you know, watching your chemical exposure through your food and your personal care and your house cleaning products, that's going to benefit the environment as well, because it's all interconnected.
I think people will find, and I know this happened to Heather, and she can speak to this, and it's definitely happened to me, that the process of cleaning up your life, okay, including like your personal care products and clothes, I mean, the carpeting in your house, whatever it happens to be that you start to focus on and try to get the chemicals out of your life, it's actually a joyful process. Like, it makes you feel good. You do feel better. And it's sort of the job as a parent. I mean, my environmentalism started when I became a new mom. It's to protect our kids, right? I mean, this is our number one job. So all these things help us do that. So it's not, I don't feel like it's something like we can put aside and get to later on. Like, it's of the utmost importance. When I got pregnant, I immediately started thinking about, okay, what I'm eating, and should it be organic, and what kind of water do I need a water filter? Am I, you know, the paint in the nursery, like all the things that a new mom starts to think about. And then once you start to educate yourself, and you start to make choices that are better for your child, they will also be better obviously for the environment. And I just think it becomes a way of life. It becomes a mind shift, like your whole mind kind of shifts, and you start seeing things, and it's a joyful process. It's a journey that you go on that ultimately, I think, also brings you happiness and joy.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's interesting that you said that it was becoming a parent that sort of clicked it over in your brain, because it was the same for me. I can point to a single moment when my second son, who was 2 years younger than my first, was spraying 409 into his mouth because I hadn't paid attention to where he was and where the bottle was. And of course, that's what a 2-year-old's going to do. And that one moment was my reckoning. And, you know, I wish I had come to concern for the environment and our health through something a little bit more lofty, like a revelation. But honestly, no, it was that moment of, what have I done and who can help me, and realizing not a lot can help me except for my own education. So I think a lot of people have.
Lisa, I have a question for you, if you don't mind. And I think
I don't mind.
That it's just something I've been thinking about during COVID. Everybody kind of went back to some old habits or some bad habits. And I'm just wondering your thoughts on cleaning supplies and whether or not they need to have chemicals in them to work, or whether or not they don't. And I know that a lot of Bronner's products are recommended for cleaning surfaces and all that. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you that soap was never so sexy as it was last year. I've been talking about how soap works and how it, that's dirt and grime are actually the same thing, whether they're on our bodies or on our houses or our laundry or on our dogs. And so like the function of soap is just as effective, and there's no reason why we need to amp it up to, really intensive cleaners. I mean, we need to reserve those for when we need them, such as, surgery. If we're using more intensive cleaners on an everyday basis, they actually become less effective. And then when we need them, like for surgery, they don't work. And so we have the development of things like antibiotic resistant bacteria and such like that, because we've gone too far. Yeah, so that's the thing about soap. So soap works by bonding with dirt and grime, forming this snazzy little sphere called a micelle, which I just think is so nifty, but I'll save the science for later. And it carries it away, and it will work whether it's on your body or, as I said, your laundry, your carpet, or your dog. And so
wow, I wish we had that little, I just want to tell you, I wish we had that little factum in our book. And I think we need to capture this. Like I want to share that information, that because, we do, I just want to say, Lisa, we do talk in the book as it relates to industrial farming and beef, about the overuse of antibiotics, which is rendering them less effective for us as humans because we're imbibing them. But you're making the point, which I had never heard before, that we actually, in the marketer's desire to keep having us buy more stuff and extend their product lines, they have us all convinced that we need different products for every different element. When you're saying a core product can be useful across so many things. I just think, and it's better because it's doesn't have harsh chemicals, but you're saying it also just can save us money from having to buy like the right cleaner for the kitchen counter and the right cleaner for the bathroom counter and a different one for the toilets. And did I hear you right? That it's just not necessary?
It isn't.
Wow.
It isn't. It saves your space. It saves your sanity, because have you ever like had guests come over maybe a little unexpectedly and you weren't ready and you're like, oh my goodness, my bathroom's not clean. I can run in my bathroom and clean it with my hand soap, because I've got the Castile soap in there, and I can just squirt out some and wipe things down. But you do talk in your book about chemical footprints, and and that's the thing. Maybe we think about chemical footprints or coming out of big industrial manufacturing, or dumping into rivers and that sort of thing. But that's not the case. I mean, yes, that's true. But, we also have to face that in our everyday lives. And is that a good place for people to start? That's kind of, if somebody's new, they're like, oh, I've been meaning to do something, to think more about my health, planet's health. Where do I start? What advice would you give a newbie?
Okay, Heather, do you want to take that, or do you want me to start?
You start, and you share your view of where to start, and then I'll share my view. Let's see.
I think yes to the question about chemicals. For example, candles. Like we're burning candles in our house everywhere, and they have chemicals in them. If they're not all organic
or the Glade air fresheners.
Or the Glade. Oh my goodness. All the air fresheners are basically spraying chemicals. Your dry cleaning. People who take clothes to the dry cleaner, they're using chemicals. They put plastic on top of it, so all the chemicals are kind of trapped inside, and then you bring that home into your closet.
Yeah,
so that's like something you should stop doing. You should bring a bag to the dry cleaners and not have them wrap it in plastic, and also less clothes that need dry cleaning. Just you could
absolutely. Well, because then those residues end up pressed up against your body. Your skin can absorb them. You can breathe. Yeah.
But I think the easiest place to start is in the kitchen, because you're there, probably 3 times a day. And the kitchen, there's so many places that you can start switching over. And, the issue of food waste is in your kitchen. And that's, a huge problem, and something that we can all do something about. And there's lots of suggestions in the book about food waste, but also, we have to talk about plastic. And one of the swaps I made out this year was I never thought of my sponge as being a piece of plastic. I don't know why. Somehow it missed me. But
it's because it's squishy, but yeah.
I just never thought of it as plastic, but also when you start using a sponge, little pieces go down the drain and that becomes microplastics and they go right out to the waterways. So that's like a simple change. Like, why wouldn't you choose a sponge made from walnut shells, which there are now, or these great brushes and the soap that you just touch and it does a great job on your dishes. So the kitchen.
Well, sponges also always lead the list for like most germiest thing in your house.
Right. And saran wrap, like how much saran wrap and plastic bags are you using? There's so many fantastic new products now. You never have to use a plastic sandwich bag again. And I love this product line called Ziploc. And they have like, not Ziploc, what am I saying? Ziploc is the plastic bag.
The bad one.
But you know what? It's interesting because the product is named Zip something. So they must have taken that on purpose to kind of bounce off the plastic bags. But anyway, it's a silicone bag and it's got a hard bottom and they're fantastic. And you can put them in your freezer. They can go in the dishwasher. They're just great.
They're called stashers.
That's one version of them, but the version I really like is, I think, Zipto or something. I have to find out. We'll put it up in the chat, Lisa, so that
that'd be great.
Anyway, stashers are great too, but you just don't need to use plastic bags anymore, and that's a change that people can make right away. Heather, I'm sure you have tons of suggestions, and I have tons more, so I'll come back after you.
Here's the thing that was my experience. I don't know if this will work for everybody, but my experience is in the book. As you noted, Lisa, we've got a series of footprints. We leave a plastic footprint, a food footprint, a chemical footprint, a paper footprint, a fashion footprint, etc. I think the best way is that a person picks the area that they're most interested in, because this is so truly about getting started, or even if you've started, you'll discover something you didn't know. Like we didn't know, even Laurie, I think, didn't quite know when we started the book, the extent of our clothing footprint, the habits we have developed about so much discarding and fast fashion, and just the whole philosophy of buy it, wear it 3 times. Wow, when you go all the way back and find out what's most of the clothing made of, where is it made, on what kind of, pollution belching stuff is coming on the giant ships that's bringing it over. So I think it works to find a footprint that you say, gee, this one looks interesting to me, and to explore it, because you just do a little bit and you get drawn in. So there is a chapter on plastic, and that chapter on your plastic footprint covers the plastic, as Laurie says, in your kitchen, in your bathroom, in your laundry room, etc. And I think if you read the little story at the beginning of each chapter that talks about that footprint, and you just begin to say, okay, I see 30 steps here. I think 3 are ones I'd like to take. And generally it's about swapping, right? It's about swapping old product for Dr. Bronner's. I have to tell you, Lisa, as soon as you talked about the giveaway, man, this giant light bulb went on in my head. And I'm saying, oh, for Christmas, I want to create these bundles that our customers could buy with the book and a combination of Dr. Bronner's product. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, wouldn't that be the greatest present under the tree for somebody to get? Like, I just
that is
amazing.
Yeah.
So I am going to talk to you after this call.
Okay. That's super.
That's fantastic. And I would also add that one of the hopes is that people will take this book to the dinner table. And Lisa is a huge, huge proponent of family dinner. And
absolutely.
And so we were talking about how we all have that in common. And actually, our love of family dinners was how Heather and I first got to meet each other. But also include your kids in this process. Like this is an awakening that the whole family needs to have. And I hope that you'll bring it to the table, and your whole family can participate in taking on any of these footprints.
Well, some of the times it's the parents bringing it to the kids. Some of the times it's the kids bringing it to the parents. But either way, the dinner table, it's such a non-confrontational thing. It's hard to be tense when you're breaking bread together. It's very bonding. And so it's a great time to be diving into conversations where you can give and take. And So much to be learned. You know, one of my favorite parts of the family dinner table actually is when we have guests over, like my kids have their friends over, because it's kind of weird to sit down to family dinner these days. And some of them I don't think do it. And so, you know, we say, all right, dinner time, everyone, you know, take a seat. They're kind of like, okay, so what do I do? And you know, and I see this look of concern on their face, but then of course it's always comfortable. They love it.
Yes.
So one thing I love in your book is your word choice of the word shift. You know, there's so much out there, so many changes we can make that it can be very overwhelming. And there might be a tendency to think, I'm doing everything wrong. I've got to dump it all out and start anew. But your approach is saying these are shifts. It's encouraging for one thing, especially for someone who might feel hopeless or overwhelmed, that it's not a stop and turn around and go the other way. It's a shift. It's a, let's make these corrections. And it's much more easy to incorporate into our lives. Did you think about that word shift as you were writing, or did it come naturally?
Heather?
I think it was a deliberate choice that also came naturally, because that is what we felt and we talked about, that this is a journey. Obviously, the closer we get, the more problems, the more we think people need to move on the journey more quickly. But it doesn't matter. The point is, this is about getting started on a journey and making these little shifts that will accumulate to a big change. And we went to, it was very important to us. I think people already on the journey will learn at least something in the book. And if you're just starting, we were really interested in empowering people and to giving them the sense that this is about starting with a few decisions and then building on it and building on it. And that as 100% over, let's say 12 years that I've been so deeply committed to this, that has been my journey. And then sometimes, you know, you start and you fall off the wagon a bit, but if you just keep going, all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're just a different person. And that is exactly what happened to me. And I had the live version, like I would say the haute couture version. I had Laurie as my personal coach. So that was really great. And that's what this book is meant to be, a kind of coach to help people just take those steps. And it's why, Lisa, I made the point at the beginning that I found this book on atomic habits so resonant with our book, because it's about how a little tiny change continually in that direction. And if I could use one quick analogy with this time, because it comes from the book, but it's fabulous. If you start off in Los Angeles and you want to end up in New York, and the pilot puts just a very tiny, tiny, tiny little error in his directional signal, just a little tiny mistake, he will end up in Chicago. What? And the inverse of that is true. In other words, little tiny changes repeated over and over in the right way can take you just thousands of miles. So yeah, that's the core. It is a very optimistic book.
Yes, exactly. And there are things in for those who are further on their journey that are what I would say more deeply green. I love the sample advocacy letter you included that you could send to your representative or somebody in a position of power, perhaps the head of a company, because somebody might be ready to make that that additional step, and the format that you put in there, I think could be a really good stepping stone for them. My brother David, Dr. Bronner, CEO, Cosmic Engagement Officer, he actually did something similar just this past week with the Climate Call to Action Day. He demonstrated how to make a phone call to your representative. You could see him doing that on the Dr. Bronner.
Well, we take that idea, and it's really in every single chapter how to take the next step and actually become an advocate. And I think one of the things that as individuals, one of our powers is us pushing up against companies and demanding change. I mean, questioning the packaging of how something comes to when you buy it, what resources they used. And I think that people have so much power, of course, with their dollar, but also with their social media to push up against companies. I'll give you one little example, which is that Wilson, who makes tennis balls, finally, because of so much pressure from customers, finally came up with a tennis ball that isn't in a plastic container. It's actually in a cardboard container, and they're called Trinity tennis balls. And I'm using these tennis balls now.
And recycled paper, right? Not
recycled paper. And the balls actually last longer than they do the plastic containers.
Yes.
And so this is a result of customers. So we can help companies change. And Heather is a CEO of her company. She will attest to the fact, and we talk about this in the book, that letters mean something. And,
absolutely.
Right, Heather?
Absolutely. He's a cosmic environmental officer. Is that what he is?
Engagement officer.
Oh my gosh, I want to change mine. I'm chief book lover, but I want to be a cosmic engagement officer. Wow.
Yeah, it's the only way he could. He was willing to take the title.
CEO.
Of CEO. You know, we're getting a lot of questions from our viewers, and they're so great. I know we're not going to get to them. So viewers, if we don't get to answer your question live, we will definitely answer it. One of the questions that we have right now, a really great one, is from a dad who has a 14-year-old daughter who's saying his daughter is just utterly resistant to his efforts to reduce, reuse, recycle. What can he do to encourage her? What advice would you have for him?
Wow, I'm surprised that she's utterly resistant. That's interesting to me because unlike my generation, a lot of these kids are learning a lot of this in school now. But I guess I would suggest starting with one thing, and see how that works. I'm just wondering, can you ask him? We can't talk to this guy, but.
Well, no, he can hear you. So you go ahead and ask him.
I'm just curious, does she drink from a reusable water bottle? Like, is she do that? Because in my household, that was a rule. So it wasn't a choice, that no plastic water bottles, and you had to use a reusable, and you can pick your own, take her to the store, let her pick out her own that she likes, or two of them, and keep them filled, and she can grab them from the refrigerator cold and filled. And I would start with that because that's something that's a habit that you want her forming.
Right. That's a simple change in the right direction. And it can be personalized and an expression of her, her joy, and also keeps your water colder.
And just to this dad, so he doesn't feel so bad, I've been trying for years to get my kids, well, a few years now, 2 years since they came out, the shampoo and conditioner that are now in solid form. And there's a lot of great companies making this, including High Bar and By Humankind, to get them to switch the shampoo. So no more plastic bottles in the shower. And I have succeeded zilch. I've not succeeded in getting my 20-year-old daughters to switch over. I've switched over, but haven't gotten them to do it yet. But I'm hoping it'll come back around, and maybe at Christmas time, they'll surprise me and say, we've switched.
You've planted seeds. Yeah, there you go. You've planted seeds for sure. Absolutely. Well, another question that we have, this is following up on our conversation about sponges. What do you use instead of a sponge? Debbie says that she uses Loofah Gardens and 3M quick drying washcloth, but was curious if there are other ideas out there.
There are so many fantastic new products tackling this problem. In fact, I just picked up a couple of new things that I hadn't tried yet. But there are, as I said, the sponges from walnut shells. But I also like these brushes. There's like
that's what I use.
Bamboo brush, and you get a solid bar of soap, and it sits right there. And honestly, it cleans your dishes faster. It's much more efficient than using a sponge. And you can have a sponge on for when you're wiping counters or whatever you might use it for. But for the daily washing of dishes, which is what breaks the sponge up so much, I love these brushes. And Heather, you're using them too.
I use a brush, and the bristles are made of a sustainable material. There are so many, and We've got a whole bunch of products at the back of the book. You, of course, Lisa, know so many products. And we at Indigo are just putting together a long list of all the products, even ones we carry and ones we don't, that are supportive of swaps. And it's really interesting. Like if you go into my kitchen or Laurie's kitchen, you will not see a paper towel. You will not see a paper towel. You will not see a single plastic bag, a plastic wrap. And first of all, it's money saving and it's just joyful. It's easy to do the swaps. It's easy. And I think we have to add, some are in the book, but we're going to add some more information on the direct swaps.
I'm still thinking about that, Dad. Anyway, here's another thing you could do on the paper towel thing, because that's another habit that our kids get into. They don't think about like paper towels come from trees. And a lot of people
toilet paper too.
Recycled paper yet. And I hope they do. Paper towels, if you're using them, and toilet paper, recycled content toilet paper is a must. But we got rid of the paper towels and everyone objected. And instead we put cloths. Now, in all the places that you would grab the paper towel, there's now cloths that work just great, and they don't have a choice. So now they're in the habit of using the cloths instead of throwing paper away every single second of the day.
Well, so what you've done there is you've made it easy for them, and that's the other thing. You can't just beat someone over the head. You have to make it easy. Like, well,
make
first
the
of all,
changes yourself and let them. You know, they're going to see that, okay, things are different in this kitchen now. What am I going to do?
Right. And that's the fun thing. If the cues, it's what's the cue that's in front of you. It's just what the cue. If the cue on the counter and the cue in the drawer are things that are recyclable. It's funny, Laura, I keep thinking about that gentleman too. The question you want to ask is, why is she resistant? But you kind of feel like maybe the best thing to do is to go for a great walk in nature and just take a great walk in a beautiful forest, and then understand that some of our most beautiful forests are being cut down for toilet paper. And everybody wants those forests, or our beautiful fish, or like, anyway, I'm sure we only have so much.
Connecting the dots. And again, this book does a great job of doing that between the choices we're making and the impacts it has. So that's the mindset shift right there. When you start to understand the dot connection.
And those facts are in Imagine It. Maybe some of the listeners and that gentleman too, pick up the book or maybe win it from today. So get it for free. There's really good tidbits, and maybe some, one or two or three will just have an impact. You know, we all have to learn.
Well, one change at a time. If you add a swap or a shift, every week or two, or maybe a month, but at the end of a year, it really adds up to a lot of shifts that you've made and a lot of changes there. We have another great question. It takes us back to the topic of food, which is one of my favorite topics. I'm sure we're all thinking about our next meal. And the question is, what about meat? And I know you talk about this and Imagine It, about the environmental impact of our meat production and our meat consumption. Do you still eat meat, especially beef? How does that come in?
Heather?
This is one area I'm passionate, so I have to be able to leave space for where people are. Industrial beef production is one of the most harmful processes, and industrial beef consumption is one of the things least good for us. But mostly the land that is clear cut in order to have grazing land is getting rid of our forests. The corn that is grown to feed them is creating huge monocultures, hurting our soil. And the conditions in which these beef are kept make it important for them to use antibiotics to keep them from getting sick. And as you said earlier, it is rendering our antibiotics less useful. And so every place in the process, and then industrially grown beef, which is fed on antibiotics and corn, is not the best thing for our bodies. So I'm of the mind, if you are really a lover of beef, if you can find a way to save money by buying less of it and then buying organic. So eating it a little less. And when you buy it, buy organic, you are at least helping the planet. And I think if you eat a little less and buy a little less and buy organic, it can be a win all the way around. And so I think, I think the beef story, as you know, Lisa and Laurie know so well, it is just a massive opportunity. The carbon footprint of the industrial beef industry is really significant.
Mm-hmm.
So
this sounds like one of those things you were saying. I mean, it is better for ourselves to consume less meat, especially industrial meat, and it's better for the planet. You can't even separate those two ends.
Right.
Exactly. Right. This kind of brings us to chocolate in a way, which I'd love for you to tell your listeners and Heather about what you're doing, how you came about a soap company to make a chocolate bar.
All right. I love the segue. We can probably segue anything about chocolate. I appreciate the opportunity because Dr. Bronner's is selling chocolate. Have you heard that? We make soap and we make body care products. We've made one food product in the recent decades, which is coconut oil. And that's really only because we put it in the soap too. But not chocolate. We don't put chocolate in the soap. But this goes back to the idea we started with, which is that everything's connected. We keep coming back to this. We can't help ourselves without helping the environment. Everything that we do is connected. And so in our soaps, we use palm oil. And I am very well aware of the concerns around palm oil. And I welcome you to look at how Dr. Bronner's has done it, because it is a solution that's not just saying, stop, stop, stop. It's giving a solution of how palm oil can be done well. And it involves a technique, an agricultural technique called regenerative organic agriculture. That may sound like a mouthful, but it makes perfect sense. It's farming like nature intends. Using a system called dynamic agroforestry. Dynamic means there's change and there's variety and diversity in there. So back to the palms. Oil palms produce more when they're grown in diversity. If they're grown by themselves, they produce less. What is that diversity? Cocoa, banana, citrus, ginger, turmeric, cassava.
I love
all of these things. And so so our farmers were getting to increase their oil production, which we wanted, by growing all these other crops, which then gave them crops to sell. It gave them greater financial stability by having year-round crops, not just one. And if that one crop failed, sorry, you got to wait till next year. It actually strengthens every crop because it reduces pest pressure, because they support each other. The crops support each other and help defend each other. It reduces the need for weed maintenance because cover crops are protecting the ground, keeping the water in. It's just, there's so many benefits to this regenerative organic agriculture. So as I said, one of the crops that our farmers were growing was cocoa, and every year we're watching that cocoa be sold off to high-end European chocolate makers, and we're like, hey, we like chocolate. So about 5 years ago, we started thinking maybe we could sell some chocolate. We had a lot to learn. We had to learn about how to make chocolate. We partnered with a family chocolate maker in Switzerland, and we just launched last month 6 brand new magic all-one chocolate bars, dark chocolate, vegan, sweetened with coconut sugar, 70% dark chocolate. So they are sold across the country. And
Lisa said the best she's ever tasted.
Okay, Lisa, I can't resist asking. I know this is all about your fabulous listeners, but can we talk after this meeting about our getting some of that chocolate?
I hope so. Yes, most definitely. Okay. It's life-changing. The only problem, you will not want to eat other chocolate after eating ours. So you might want to finish up what you have first.
I'm talking about for Indigo. I am in love with this story because at the heart of this story, I think, is the essence of what you want us to do, all of us, which is, this is not about giving up something. When you actually explore this, you're gaining. Yes. And that story is about how finding a better way to create palm oil for the planet has given rise to benefits for the farmers and inspiration and innovation for you. And I think that is at the heart of the opportunity and optimism with this shift. And even for that one father, as long as his teenager is thinking this is about losing something or even making life more stressful, none of us will succeed. This is actually a different idea. And you have just said it. Here's the problem: is we can't be so wasteful. The opportunity is, how can we live as joyfully or more joyfully? And instead of being wasteful, be creating. And I think that's the essence of this journey. It's not about pain. It's not about giving up. It's not about deprivation. It's about abundance.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And
Yep.
joy, ultimately, because there you go. There's the connection, right? What, just exactly how you described it, Heather. Beautifully said.
I absolutely. And actually, that is a perfect note for us to wrap up on, this idea of joy and optimism as we move forward in creating, benefiting ourselves and benefiting our planet. So I want to thank Heather Reisman and Laurie David for joining me today to talk about your book, Imagine It, a handbook for a happier planet, available at booksellers across the country, Canada as well. And it's just been a delight to have you both with me today.
Thank you so much.
And you, so glad to be connected. I hope this is the first of many opportunities for the three of us to connect.